Wait, was that the bridge? Yep, that's the bridge. It seems like this video was sponsored for him. Bro, why is this unlisted? Came from your playlist. Oh, so, okay, so he didn't even realize it went unlisted. Maybe it had something to do with a sponsor. Okay, I was expecting something a little older than that. We have to find relics. What is this? Who needs good internet anyway? Not me. What is this shit? Oh, streamed live? What is this, bro? White screen? The entire time? That is it. What the fuck? All right. What else is there, PewDiePie? What is this test? Is this a stream? Yep, it's an entire stream. And he's playing PUBG. Oh my god, is this the fucking stream?
If I had a house.
Please tell me this is not the bridge stream, dude. Is it? Wait. Can we pull up a reference? Let's pull up a reference. He's wearing the same attire.
A guy runs in the snow, desperate for his life. From a distance, an arrow comes and hits, filling his heel. He stumbles and falls to the ground, starting to crawl. The moment he looks back, a hooded figure places a blade to his neck. The blue-eyed man simply says to search him. Then they say they found the sacred relic. As they hold the chalice, the boy says there's nothing he can really do in this life. Blood then gushes, and we find out that this boy is trapped inside a game. A voice utters the word murder. Slowly, the boy wakes up, calling for the mother of corruption. The voice keeps saying murder, but he only says that it was better he died that way. Suddenly, the little hand that was on the ground grabs his chest, saying murder once again. While his head speaks about the contents of the relic, his body walks from a distance. As he is lifted, he smiles, saying they've already absorbed that relic, and now they had no more reasons to be hunted. Of course, there was still a problem. He was broke, with no money at all, and the goddess of decadence keeps saying murder all the time. In the real world, he was already a bit older and didn't have as much time to invest in games. That's why he started using some mods and hacks. And it all started with a game he doesn't even remember the name of. All because he wanted to play as the priest of corruption. This was an extremely hard class to obtain. Not only was it difficult to play with it, but it was ridiculously weak. However, it was this kind of class that got him excited. And the moment he finally completed the quest to change class was the day he was suddenly pulled into this game as a cleric of decadence. The little hand keeps gripping his chest, saying murder. He explains that this is the mother of decadence, the goddess he serves. It's been 5 years since he started serving her. When he fell into this game for the first time, he wore the class clothes and had the hand of decadence attached to his chest. Because of the overwhelming presence of the goddess's reincarnation in the hand, it didn't take long for him to accept that he had been pulled into the game. In the game's story, the priests of decadence are humans who have been enhanced through drug use. Because of this, he has superhuman strength and extremely sharp senses. Additionally, he can't be killed unless it's by something sacred. Lastly, there's something that makes 0 sense to him. Normally, a little blood was enough to make him completely nauseous. However, now, no matter how much gore there is, he doesn't feel anything. And speaking of nothing, he also doesn't feel the taste of any food anymore, and he misses eating pork. The scene advances in time and someone receives a cleric's identification. It's our boy at the counter asking if there's any work for him. The girl asks for a second and says she'll see if there's any work for a preservation cleric. Smiling, our boy explains that the day he arrived in this northern land, he introduced himself as a cleric of the Order of Preservation. That's because if it wasn't for that order, he would have to suffer the wrath of his goddess. And then he would receive a mark that could only be seen by people from the same order as him. The good thing is that the goddess of decadence is quite benevolent when it comes to disguise. That's because the Order of Decadence is actually hated by everyone, and he just so happens to be the only disciple she has. The girl then calls for Cleric Marnik and says there's a job for him. He looks at the paper and she says it's quite convenient for him. The job was about people disappearing when going to the city of Gis, and he would earn 30 silvers for finding the culprit. She asks if he wants to read the sheet and tells him not to worry. That's because when he came to this world, he instantly learned the language. He then places the sheet on the table and asks if he could receive a little of the reward in advance. The scene advances a few days. A carriage is being taken through a snowy mountain. In the end, the girl gave him a part of the payment in advance, but she talked quite a lot. The hand seems to ask if he has a crush on her. Marnik says no as he crushes that damn little hand, saying it won't stop being annoying today. Then someone from behind calls for Marnik. A chubby guy says he knows Marnik isn't from the city of Gis and asks where he's from and says this path leads to where his parents were born, whom he hasn't seen in a long time. Our boy remembers that this guy's name is Fear. Talkative, Fire starts telling a bunch of stories about how he's worried about his parents, but a captain helped and everything else. Suddenly, a guy with a scar calls for him. He apologizes, saying he's in front but will be back soon. The little hand apparently ordered him to kill everyone. Our boy tells it to calm down, that he'd get into trouble if he obeyed it like that, and warns that they need to reach Gis alive, otherwise he won't get the remaining 29 silvers and warm himself this winter. However, the little hand keeps saying murder. Our boy seems tired of trying to convince it. He apologizes for his anger and tells it not to take it to heart. The hand then stretches and he asks how many fingers he gives it. Upon observation, you could see that some of them had one, while others had 2 fingers. For Marnik, none of this was noticeable. If he killed those guys, he could send their bodies to the goddess of decay and receive some blessings based on the number of fingers she gave. The value increases tenfold from 1 to 5 fingers, ranging from 10 blessings to 100,000. And if he pays 10,000 points, he receives a new ability. Recently, he absorbed the points from the sacred relic and received a new ability. There were still 12 other relics left, and the goddess said she would grant him any wish if he could obtain them. The first thing he wanted was to regain his sense of taste. At that moment, Fear said the captain had told him not to bother our boy too much. He apologized to our boy and said he would leave him more alone. Marnik said it was fine, slowly opening his eyes, saying he didn't mind. But then something happened. The entire group was under attack by a rain of arrows. Immediately, Marnik grabbed Fear by the shoulder and threw him backward. Another arrow came and hit the boy's arm. At that moment, Fear screamed for the cleric. While the bandits aimed from within the bushes, Marnik lay there, fallen. As he thought about those bandits, the goddess of decadence spoke to him. He realized she was asking him to fake death and then absorb the blessing of all of them. Seeing how many had died, he knew it wouldn't be too bad. However, slowly getting up, he said to the mother that he knew what to do. He ran, grabbed his sword, and said he preferred this method. With that, he charged at them. One archer was startled, but in the next second, his head was already flying off. The people behind the trees were all terrified, and the blonde guy realized they had messed with the wrong people. At that moment, he told his group to handle the rest of the cart while he would finish off the cleric. Then Marnik felt something. At that very moment, he defended himself from the blonde guy's attack, who smiled while he too remained calm. With that, Marnik retaliated with a blow and both were knocked back. He then asked the goddess how many fingers that guy had. The blonde guy heard that and asked if he had gone mad. Once again, they began exchanging a flurry of attacks. The hand said he was worth 2.5. Our boy was impressed that this little bandit had the same power as the guy who once tore off his neck. Indeed, this damn game was so unbalanced. He retreated and the guy charged at him again. The goddess kept urging him to kill. However, his sword broke and a piece fell to the ground. The blonde guy laughed, saying that's why he only used rim of steel. And Marnik realized he was going to die because of those damn poor quality weapons. Then the blonde guy humbly said that the cleric didn't seem to have anything of value, so he'd let him leave alive. After all, they were already planning to leave this place, and he asked Marnik what he thought about each going their separate ways in peace. However, Marnik began to smile and asked the blonde guy why he didn't stop stealing and give up this life. Then he would show mercy and let him go. The blonde guy asked if he was serious, if he really thought he'd accept such terms. At that moment, our boy took an arrow to the head. The blonde guy said they took too long and he almost died because of that damn cleric. With that, our boy's body collapsed to the ground, while the others told the captain he'd overdone it, especially since the boy no longer had a sword. The captain asked if everyone was dead, and the others said no one was breathing anymore. However, a strange voice asked if they were sure about that. Slowly, Marnik began to stand up. Everyone was startled and asked him why they looked so surprised. It seemed as though they'd never seen someone take an arrow to the head and remain alive. Obviously, they replied they had never seen such a disaster. However, Marnik clasped his hands and said he had given them a chance, and the answer he received was an arrow to the skull. Everyone started to feel a strange chill. The knight pointed and said to get rid of this kid because he was feeling something weird. Several arrows were fired at him, and many hit him. However, calmly, Marnik prayed to the goddess of decadence, saying he was in a tough spot and didn't know what to do. He begged her to hear his plea and exercise her power in that place. At that moment, the blonde guy started shouting for everyone to run. But suddenly, they were faced with a barrier and said they couldn't get out. That line, which can't be crossed by living creatures, is a characteristic of the clerics of decadence, to hide their power from the outside world. And Marnik told the goddess that he loved this power too much. The captain said they had no choice and ordered everyone to draw their swords. They were going to have to cut this guy in half. But then, everything started to explode. At that moment, everyone's expressions changed as they screamed for the captain. A gigantic creature appeared in the middle of the barrier, and the poor captain had already been crushed. Seeing that monstrosity, they wondered what it was. And in that moment, desperate, everyone started running. But they hadn't escaped and just kept looking back, pleading for help, begging Marnik for mercy, saying they would never steal again. However, he told the goddess that she could do whatever she wanted as long as she left the heads. With that, the snow was painted. Sometime later, he walked alone. The escort mission had been a failure. The goddess kept talking, and he asked if she really wanted him to absorb those people. However, the problem was that if he did that, they would fall into decay, and their bodies would disappear. And what if he heard someone moving nearby? As he approached, he saw Fear lying on the ground, almost dead. Marnik replied to the hand that he couldn't kill the boy, as he needed him alive to gain a good reputation. So in fact, he would need the mother's help to stop the decay from spreading through his followers. The scene shifts to someone holding a chalice. The girl asks what happened to the person who stole the sacred relic. The man responds that he was decapitated on the spot. The woman asks about the body, and he says it was left behind, and all they brought was the relic. The girl doesn't seem to respond, and the man calls for the cleric. She says he can return with that sacred relic, while she would begin a pilgrimage. The man asks why now. Perhaps it was because of the prophecy. She says that is also one of the reasons, and that there is also someone she needs to meet. Back with Marnik, he carries Fear to their destination, while the voice explains that 10 years ago, all the orders received a prophecy. It spoke of the end being brought to the land by a person wearing the skin of the living. Someone then calls for Marnik. While the others take Fear, a girl says she received permission from the Sentinels. Sometime later, she says she's surprised. She didn't think he was that strong, and Marnik says he's not lazy when it comes to strength. Then she says she's curious about something. She heard he had the heads of all the people responsible for the disappearances in that sack, and asks him to hand it over so she can take it to the guild for them to handle. She asks if he has somewhere to stay for the night, saying there's definitely a vacant house in the city. She then says if he doesn't mind, perhaps he could come to her house and spend the night. While Marnik blushes, the goddess's voice keeps yelling at him. The next morning's caressing the hand, saying he knew very well. He only accepted her invitation because he didn't have any indecent thoughts about that girl. In fact, she didn't invite him to sleep with her, but rather to stay at the guild's inn. Someone then knocks on the door. The girl greets him good morning and calls for Marnik, explaining that she was going to let him sleep more, but something happened. He says it's fine and asks what it was. She says that Lord Gis wants to see him. Marnik seems confused and asks if she knows why he wants to see him. She explains it's because the mercenary captain Gallard who died was this guy's half-brother. At Lord Gis's mansion, the butler, who looks like Eminem, introduces our boy to the Lord. The Lord, named Trendon Farlian, stares at our boy and says that he is the one who witnessed his brother's death. He asks if he would be interested in some tea. However, the moment Marnik saw this man, the goddess of decadence marked him with an X. Marnik asks the Lord if he's enjoying life possessing a human body. The X calls him a demon. Marnik knows very well why the mother marks people with an X. It happens when she cannot give the creature a number of fingers. And demons are the only ones who take on human form. By nature, demons are the most powerful race that exists, but they conquer nothing as they are exiled by all others. The only way they can obtain anything is by dealing with sapient beings, and that's why demons love humans. The gods distanced themselves from humans who took but gave nothing in return. Over time, more and more humans fell into the hands of demons. Then the gods made a declaration. A priest opened his arms and said that from now on, those who are impure would be called demons. And demons were considered the manifestation of all evil. That's how all clerics began hunting these demons. Marnik remembers that the demon summoner class was also one of the hardest that most people avoided. If he hadn't managed to become a cleric of decadence, that would have been his second option. Farlian stays silent for a second and says that it seems Gallard's death has brought a rare visitor. He then says that since it was identified in his second, it's impossible for our boy to be from the goddess of preservation. Farlian then says that his demon name is Crawling Weight. Our boy introduces himself as Marnak, cleric of the mother of decadence. The Lord comments that he thought that order had already gone extinct, but it seems this goddess still lives. He then tells our boy to sit down as there's no one else there but the two of them. Farlian then says he will tell the truth. He called our boy there for no special reason, but since he's there, he wants to know in detail how Captain Gallard died. And from the information, he could give some rewards. Poor Farlian, Marnak smiles. He says he'll obviously be happy to tell him everything. As our boy leaves, we see what Farlian explained to him. His brother had been unemployed this winter, so he helped him find work. However, he never imagined that this would be what led to his death. Life really was a complex riddle. Now outside with his coins, Marnik was all happy. He would never be tempted by this gold, which represented the Lord's genuine expression of kindness. And he told the Mother of Decadence to stop calling him a materialistic cleric, because that didn't exist. He then said he knew something better than gold, something that never decays. And he said it was the endless love he had for the goddess. She trembled all over, and it was clear Marnik wasn't right in the head either. He then told her not to worry. To him, she was above all others. Back at the guild, the goddess was telling him to kill the woman who pointed to the side and told him to welcome the other clerics of illumination. However, Marnik didn't want to get involved with those fanatics, but his eye twitched as he saw something strange. His heartbeat began to race. Because at the moment he looked at one of those guys, the mother warned him that one of them was carrying a sacred relic. One of the guys then stepped forward and said he never expected to meet a cleric of preservation in a place like this. The man said he was the pendulum of divine judgment and introduced himself as Orvs. His horned friend was named Cornu. This guy came with a full kit, and the girl next to him was called Patina. Our boy put his hand on his chest and introduced himself as Marnak, a cleric of the goddess of preservation. The guild girl informed them that they would stay around for a while, just like him. And our boy thought that was incredible, especially since he would have many opportunities to steal the sacred relic. The only problem was that when he started absorbing, he couldn't avoid the decadent energy from leaking out. All sweet, he said that apparently he would have to steal again. With that, the guy extended his hand and said they were going to meet Lord Farlian. He was eager for them to chat when they had the chance. The guys left and Marnik just kept watching. The guild girl then said that clerics always paid very little to stay in that place. Our boy then asked if that was the only reason she called him there. She, confused, asked if he had, for a second, thought she had any interest in him. He said no, he'd never think of such a thing. But she smiled and said that, in fact, there was a personal reason behind it. She wanted him to use a preservation blessing on the food supplies. She came close to his ear, saying that way it would last much longer. He, confused, pushed her away and asked why she liked to sigh in his ear. While the girl laughed, the goddess was dying to kill her. But this crazy guild girl was confused and said they seemed really close. Marnak, confused, looked to the side. He saw one of the guys and asked if he hadn't gone with his companions. It was the cleric Cornu, who explained that in the northern lands, many people didn't like his race. So he just went over and said goodbye to the others. At the counter, the girl explained that Lord Farlian didn't care about such things. As cold as he may seem, he took business very seriously. You could say he was a professional at keeping opinions separate from business. Cornu responded that he understood and thanked her. He then asked her to tell him a little more about this lord. They kept talking, and our boy just kept an eye on the conversation. He then said he wanted to ask something. What were he and his friends hoping to achieve by meeting Lord Farlian? Cornu said he would tell the truth. They were investigating a prophecy from 10 years ago that said the end would come with a person hiding in the skin of the living. In their interpretation, this referred to demons. Marnak asked if they thought Farlian was a demon. Cornu said no, they were just going to take a look. That's because orbs had an item that could tell if someone was a demon or not, an artifact known as a sacred relic. At that moment, a dragon's mouth appeared and half the city exploded. It seemed that Farlian had transformed. Orbs threw his axe up and called for divine judgment. He commanded Farlian to die and struck him right in the middle of the head. Another explosion happened in the city. From a distance, Cornu recognized it as Orbs' hammer of judgment. It seemed he was fighting a demon, and they had to help the guy. Marnak started running and told him he'd catch up soon. Then Marnak called for Aaron, who asked what was going on. He just walked in and asked where it was. He wanted to know where the infirmary where Fear was being treated was. Before the poor girl could answer, he stomped on the guild floor and jumped out. The boy landed with style and took off. In the city, everyone was fleeing in desperation as Orbs struck Farlian with his hammer. Aaron screamed, telling him to be careful because that was a monster. She had no idea how such a creature had suddenly appeared in the middle of the city. However, Marnik just told her to show him where the hellfire was. She then pointed in the direction of the infirmary. Marnik finally arrived and Fear was resting peacefully. Our boy was emotional. It would be terrible to lose this guy right after saving his life. He slung Fear over his shoulder and told Aaron to hold on tight since he couldn't carry both of them. Blushing, she hugged our boy, who stomped on the ground again and flew out of the infirmary. She then said she knew of a secret passage. He asked where she's pointing once more. In that house, there was an exit from the city of Gis. Just as she was about to talk about the door being locked, he had already kicked it down. The poor girl was all confused by the destruction the cleric was causing. She then said to Marnik that he seemed incredibly strong for a priest. He simply put her down and told her to run so things wouldn't get worse. She then asked where he was going, to which he replied he'd be right back. The second she stepped forward again, Marnik was already gone, running. The city was full of rubble, and in the middle of it, he found Cornu in bad shape. Cornu looked at him, and our boy could already tell. The wound he had was too deep. Not even a cleric could do anything about it. He knew the guy didn't have much time left, so he asked where the other two were. Cornu, barely alive, told him that Patina was already dead and shredded on the ground. Marnak then asked if there was any way to suppress this demon. Cornu explained that Orbs had another relic that he had driven into the creature's head, an item called the Argento Sword. If someone could use that sword and strike directly into the brain, the demon would die. With that, poor Cornu passed on to the next life. At that moment, Marnak called upon the Mother of Decadence and said he would collect this fallen soul. Meanwhile, Orbs was struggling, hammering the sword's hilt and calling for divine judgment. At that moment, Farlian swung his tail upward, and right there, Marnik saw an opening. He leaped onto the creature's back and stabbed between the scales. From a distance, he could see Orbs hammering the sword. However, that's when he noticed something strange. The crocodile started doing those wild spins in midair. Poor Marnik was thrown far away, and the boy crashed into the ground with an explosion. It was as if the boy was made of oil. The mother was crying when he told her it was fine. However, life was truly unpredictable, just as Farlian had said. He started to smile and said that, as she could see, things had taken an unexpected turn. The sacred relic was right next to him, and he picked it up. He placed it on his chest and said he had another offering to make to her. With that, it was time to guarantee a new power. The relic began to be absorbed, and Marnak knew that one relic was usually enough to gain a new ability. With that, he advanced to 11,723 points, and another seal had been broken. He then asked the goddess what had changed. She detached from his chest and started walking. He could now communicate with her from a distance, but he was expecting something more interesting. She kept complaining, and he said he understood that she had evolved. However, in this situation, it was time to take things a bit more seriously. He then called upon the Mother of Decadence and said that now he would spend the 10,000 blessing points to receive a new ability. With that familiar lazy smile, the new ability was the Ink of Decadence. The effect was simple but powerful. The moment he activated the ability, his skin became covered in mystical tattoos, and the extra force of decadence was amplified several times over. He started walking, saying that this new ability seemed quite satisfying and had come at the perfect moment. Not to mention that his crushed leg was already healed. That's when he noticed something nearby. Cleric Orbs was destroyed too. Wow, everyone's dying. He realized it had happened right when he was thrown away. With that, he prayed for the man to rest in peace, called for the Mother of Decadence, and once again made an offering to her. Meanwhile, the lizard creature was destroying the entire city. Marnak was beginning to think something was off. It was these three clerics who had activated this demon, but even now, with all three dead, it hadn't stopped. He received 1,000 blessings for orbs and said that a demonic creature was always a beast full of instincts. He then smiled and told the Mother of Decadence to brace herself because he was about to move a lot. With that, he ran at full speed across the rooftops. Farlian glanced at him, but the next second, Marnak was already leaping onto his tail and climbing onto his shoulder. The creature tried to swing its tail, but he dodged and kept running toward the sword. Another relic was right in front of him. That's when he realized that the crocodile was throwing its body to the side and was about to start spinning again. He slid to the opposite side, saying he had expected that. He hit the ground and slid under the belly, saying that he wasn't the type to fall for the same trick twice. Another explosion and the entire city was destroyed. Well, it seemed our boy wasn't doing too well. He realized that using this Ink of Decadence was causing his organs to be consumed as well. Soon, his entire body would be melted, and obviously, he would become incapacitated. With little time left, he moved closer to the Argento sword. He grabs the sword and remembers what Cornu said. If he could drive it into the creature's brain, the demon would die. He plunges the blade in and smiles. Pulling the sword out, he tells it to wake up, calling out Lord Farlian's name. Suddenly, the crocodile's body begins to glow with a blue light, illuminating the entire city, even reaching the guild. Sometime later, Farlian's beaten body collapses to the ground. Marnak approaches and asks if he's back with them. Farlian says that meeting a cleric like him was truly a stroke of luck. Our boy then explains that the sword had been suppressing Farlian's consciousness and extends his hand, asking what he thought of the help he provided. The demon stands up and smiles, saying it went far beyond what he expected. Lord Farlian was a good person but had to defend himself and had his consciousness suppressed. The scene shifts to someone preparing a spell in their hand. It's the cleric from before who releases the spell onto the ground. Everything starts to burn. The old man says he's seen her power countless times before, but it never fails to impress him. However, he comments that the body had disappeared, but he's certain that's where he cut off the boy's head. Considering the time that's passed, some beast must have carried him off. The beautiful girl responds that's probably what happened. She thanks him for guiding her there and says she has one more request. She wants to know the names of all the cities in this region. Back in the ruined city of Gis, our boy walks around with a butler who looks like Eminem. As they enter a house, Farlian greets them with open arms, saying he couldn't wait to see the boy again. Our boy replies that he seems more radiant every time they meet. Farlian says it's an honor to stand before Cleric Marnak, known as the Demon Slayer. Our boy says the demon everyone talks about is standing right in front of him, not slain. Farlian responds that even demons need to live. After all, what creature is born with the sole purpose of death? Marnak says that's a good way to think about it. After the incident, Farlian, as the lord of the city, declared our boy the savior, saying he had slain the demon. As a result, he gained the undeserved title of Demon Slayer. In Irina, the guild girl didn't help calling him all kinds of names and boosting his popularity. Now, everyone in the city believes he really is the famous Demon Slayer, and wherever he goes, they talk about how much stronger he is than he looks, and how he takes down bandits on his own. Marnak then tells Farlian he's impressed, that he's already learned to use that wooden hand and foot so well. Farlian says he does it only in Marnak's presence, because to everyone else, it's just a piece of wood, for which he had to pay a high price. Marnak, shocked, asks what the price was. Farlian explains that something tragic will soon start to happen. It took too much energy to connect those wooden pieces, and soon he'll be bald. In a few months, he'll have a shiny mountain on his head. Our boy wonders why he even imagines such things. The Lord then asks if he has a week, and Marnak says yes. He then says it's perfect timing because someone has requested a job specifically for him, probably because he's the famous Demon Slayer. The job involves the ancient ruins of the Empire, and the reward is 5 gold coins. Additionally, if his contribution to the task is valuable, he could receive one of the artifacts they find in the ruins. At that moment, the goddess speaks to him, and it's obvious he won't refuse. He thanks Farlian, saying it will be a pleasure to accept. The old empire ended the era of corrupted sorcerers and unified the continent. The technological advancements they built are still considered treasures of immense power today. In other words, the best items in this world are all artifacts from the old empire. The scene shifts to our boy introducing himself to the group. A sharp-looking man introduces himself as Carmen Valtes, saying he was the one who asked for our boy to be there. The name Valtes catches Marnek's attention, and the man confirms, yes, he's the son of the Black Wolf, known as Ensis Valtes. However, he needed to know that he was an illegitimate son. That leaves Marnek a bit confused. He thought that the Black Wolf was a man of principles who lost his wife young and continued living alone. Obviously, rumors can't be trusted and he won't get involved in that. So he asks to be introduced to the rest of the group. The man introduces the mage named Tonitha, who will guide them through the ruins, and another horned man who introduces himself as Sukas. This group seems very similar to the previous one. It looks like everyone's going to die again. The man greets our boy, saying it's a pleasure to meet the demon slayer. Our boy simply asks to be called Marnek. Carmen then says that now everyone's introduced, it's a good idea to get going, because it will take 2 days just to reach the ruins. We fast forward to 2 days later, with them camping around a fire. Carmen tells our boy to sleep and rest as much as possible. Our boy just says he's not sleepy and is a young man full of energy. Carmen replies that if that's the case, he'd like to hear some stories. He says Marnek is a handsome young man and asks him to tell some of his stories with women. Our boy says that he's like an untouched field of snow, with no woman having ever come close. This leaves Carmen surprised, and he asks if Marnek has a type. At that moment, the little hand pays close attention, and our boy says what he likes most is a woman who stays close to him. Carmen says it's really good to have someone who always wakes up by your side, but for him, the most important thing is a woman with a big heart. The little hand gives a thumbs up, saying that's a great reason. And Carmen says the heart is behind the chest, and if that's the case with a big heart, she must have a large receptacle, meaning, of course, that he likes busty women. Marnek says it's great to have such clear tastes because they work as a guide in life, but if you could offer one piece of advice, it's to never tell that to other women. Carmen says he's never revealed that to anyone else but Marnek and only shared because he feels like he's talking to an old friend. Our boy replies that he feels the same, and with that, they laugh and talk the whole night. But another night passes, and he wakes up the next morning, thanking the goddess for always reminding him to be careful with whom he makes friends. Yet for some reason, Carmen seemed like a good person. Then Tonitha says they've arrived, and she'll begin to open the gates of the ruins. Entering a ruin of the old empire is a simple process. You need a key, and then you go to the coordinates engraved on it. You read the words inscribed on it and aim the key in the air in no particular direction, and then you just turn it. The only detail is that only mages can read the ancient language, which is why they are indispensable when it comes to exploration. Of course, our boy being a player is the exception. He can obviously read the ancient language, but for obvious reasons, he always keeps that a secret. Carmen calls out, saying it's time for them to go in. They start walking through the dungeon, and they find themselves in front of a massive structure. Carmen says that of all the ruins he's been to, this one is the best preserved. Excited, Marnek says it's sure to be full of artifacts. Back when he used to play, he remembers only seeing pictures of places as incredible as this. Indeed, coming here was the best choice. With that, they continue walking through the catacombs. After walking for a bit, they come across a gigantic door with some inscriptions. It says they would have to prove that royal blood runs through their veins. Tonitha then explains that they would need royal blood, or in this case, be ready for a fight. A bunch of strange-headed creatures starts charging at them. The group is already inside the room, surrounded by the monsters. Sukas pulls out his axe and slices 2 of them in half. Tonitha casts a spell, destroys the ground, and sends a bunch of them flying. Marnek calmly watches the destruction, pulls out his blade, and starts cutting everything down. At that moment, something comes from behind, and the little hand calls out to him. He barely manages to turn around and defend himself from the creature. Before he can think of what to do, it takes an arrow to the head. The monster falls to the ground, and Carmen smiles at him. He gives a thumbs up, and our boy thanks him. However, they hear Sukas complaining that Tonitha had pulled the creatures upward. She responds that it was the fastest way to get rid of everything. Her plan works, so there was no need for him to complain. Carmen tells him to calm down, but an angry Sukas just sits down on the ground. Then he calls out to Marnek and says he now understands why he's called a demon slayer. Our boy says he's embarrassed that nowadays he doesn't even seem like a cleric. He compliments Carmen's skill with a bow, and Carmen says that Bao has been his friend since childhood. He practiced tirelessly for countless days. But at that moment, Tonitha asks when they're going to move. She was ready and had plenty of magic to spend. Sukas complains, asking why she's in such a hurry if he just sat down. As much as she just says a few words and throws magic, he and Marnek need to rest. However, Tonitha says she thinks everyone should go now to reach the end as soon as possible, and in her opinion, Sukas was just being a crybaby. Carmen then tells them to calm down, that they were going to rest, and he wouldn't accept any objections. Marnek knows that in this world, most mages are incredibly stubborn. That's because the process of becoming a mage is quite simple. You just have to be born as a mage. Typically, such children already have power even before birth, but their awakening only comes when they reach a certain age. At that moment, information about the ancient language begins to enter their minds, and without any effort or cost, they start learning ancient powers. Combining that with their natural talent, they begin bending the rules of reality, and in a way, they are reborn a second time as mages. Maybe it's because of the excess of information they receive, but every mage hates studying, and most of them end up becoming overpowered thugs. At least that's how it was with all the mages he'd met. And to be honest, Tanitha was one of the most well-mannered he'd ever seen. Sometime later, Carmen says that now that everyone has rested, it's time to head to the next area. However, suddenly, everything starts shaking, and in an instant, the door in front of them slams shut, trapping everyone inside. Carmen is confused, not knowing why that happened. Suddenly, everyone hears something behind them. A portal appears, and from it, a stone creature begins descending into the dungeon. Marnik gets excited because things had been too easy for such a good dungeon. Now he was sure that this creature was the true challenge. Sukas prepares himself, but Tanitha steps up and tells him to get out of the way. She begins casting a spell, but the golem seems to notice something. Around her, a bunch of stones starts rising. The girl created an island on the ceiling, but then the golem's eyes started glowing. Carmen shouted for her to move because she was in danger. At that moment, the golem fired a laser. Everyone was shocked and everything above Tanitha exploded. She looked up, not knowing where to escape, because the only exit was closed and the golem was coming down to punch her. The girl got turned into a hamburger. Sukas only saw the oil flying in front of him. The golem raised its hand and Marnik shouted for Sukas to run, but it was too late, and he also got smashed against the wall. Well, folks, the moment I saw this group was identical to the last one that died. We already knew they were done for. Marnik asks Carmen if he wants to live, and of course, Carmen responds that he does. Our boy then tells him to lend his chin and knocks him out with a punch, putting him to sleep. He didn't want to reveal his powers, so he just called the mother and said he didn't have time for prayers. Immediately, her white creature charged at the stone golem. The golem was startled, the creature of decadence slammed it on the head. While Marnik ran, the golem was being pummeled. He turned around and said it was magnificent, no matter how many times he saw it. Obviously, he gained 1,000 points for absorbing Tanitha and another 100 for absorbing Sukas' body. He then threw Carmen against the wall and started observing the fight, knowing it would take some time. The goddess appeared and said something to him, to which as always he agreed. He activated the ink of decadence and said he was tired of playing around. It was time to give a helping hand to his target. He dashed toward the golem, knowing that the target was the stone on its forehead, that blue gem. From the creature of decadence's back, a hand emerged and Marnik smiled. He began climbing it, trying to find a blind spot on the golem. He only had one chance, and he leaped toward it. From the creature of decadence to the golem in 1 second, and he destroyed the gem. With that, the creature began to stagger, fell to the ground, and Albie didn't make a sound. Our boy thanked the goddess for her help. However, suddenly, the hand pointed upward. He asked what it was, and in the sky, several more golems began to appear. At that moment, the poor guy's expression changed. The golems started pouring into the dungeon. It didn't stop raining monsters, and he wondered how many more would appear. Sometime later, he put Carmen on the ground and confirmed that, unfortunately, Tanitha and Sukas were dead. He wished he could have saved them, but it all happened too fast. Carmen apologized, saying he should have activated the key as soon as he saw the golem. They had barely been hired, and now they were dead because of his greed. Marnik said they had hired hands, and like any other mercenary, they knew exactly what they were getting into. So he couldn't be too hard on himself. Carmen then asked where they were, and our boys said they were behind the black door. Frightened, he asked how that was possible. But then he said he knew Marnik wouldn't answer since he had been knocked out to hide something. And since he had been saved, he just said he owed Marnik an eternal debt. Our boy said he looked forward to the payment and had no reason to refuse it. But he told him that if he was feeling better, it was time for them to get moving again. Marnik remembered that as soon as he killed the first giant, 3 more started falling from the sky. Obviously, he let the creature of decadence get pummeled, ran to the door, activated the ink's power, and kicked Carmen inside. He told the creature of decadence that it could disappear as soon as he was out, so he thought it was fine. He then looked up and found himself in front of a door with some kind of energy around it. Apparently, they had reached the end of the ruin. He turned to Carmen and asked if he was ready to enter. The door opened, and in front of a portal, they saw a sword and a necklace. Carmen commented that the book was right after all. He then turned to our boy and said that while he already owed him a favor, he wanted to ask for one more. He wanted to keep that necklace and promised any reward Marnik wanted when they got out of there. Marnik laughed and asked why that necklace was so special. Carmen explained that the necklace was called Kinfender, and if he dropped a single drop of blood on it, he could know where his family members were. The necklace would serve as a guide to lead him to them. Marnik thought for a moment, then said that since it was for family, that was fine. And Carmen said it was obvious that he was trying to find someone he had never met before, his mother. Marnik said that was fine and asked if, in that case, he could keep the sword. Later, outside around a campfire, they talked about everything that had happened. As soon as they grabbed the items and tried to escape, the golems started appearing. Carmen said he thought he was going to die by a hair's breadth. He then took the necklace off and called for Marnik, asking if he could pray for him. Our boy smiled and said it would be a pleasure. With that, Carmen pricked his finger and asked the goddess of preservation to bless them. The goddess of decadence, who was there, was furious with the two of them. Carmen then let a drop of blood fall on the Kinfinder necklace. A red energy began to rise to the sky. Carmen got emotional. The necklace was pointing in a direction, indicating that his mother was still alive. Our boy said it was good to know the item worked. Carmen was happy and said he didn't know how to thank Marnak. Marnak responded that as long as he thanked him sincerely, could be whenever he wanted. Then Carmen said that speaking of sincerity, he wanted to make an offer. Our boy asked what it was, and Carmen said he wanted to extend their contract. Until he found his mother, he would head east, and when he reached the capital, he would give Marnak a great reward. Of course, all travel expenses would be on him. Our boy, being a greedy capitalist, smiled. He wanted to accept this greedy offer, but didn't want to be seen as materialistic. Carmen stood there waiting for the answer. Then Marnak thought that since he had waited a little, no one would think he was materialistic. So he said that if it was to find his mother, he would definitely accept. With a big smile, he said it was a pleasure to continue the journey. Night fell, and they were back at the guild with Iron asking why he wanted to leave so suddenly. Angrily, she said she had done so much for this wretch, so he shouldn't just leave without notice. She reached out for his hand, and our boy looked confused. She handed him something and said that these things never get ready so quickly, so he should be grateful. Our boy got all excited. He had received a silver rank mercenary badge. He thanked her, and she told him to come back and promised to see her again. That's what he should have said, but our boy only apologized in his mind. That was a promise he unfortunately couldn't make. He stayed silent, and Iron said that at this rate, he would never be able to love anyone, as that's what she would say. Then she told him until next time. If the opportunity arose, she looked forward to seeing him again, and for some reason, she believed it would be sooner than he expected. He was about to ask why, but she covered his mouth, saying it wasn't something he needed to know. Then she stole a little indirect finger kiss, saying it was a personal punishment for the boy. The scene shifted to him talking to Farlian, and apparently, the side effect had arrived quite quickly. With his bald head shining, he asked if all babies weren't born without hair. In his opinion, he had just become a little closer to his natural appearance. Then he said that since our boy was going to the capital, he had prepared something for him. He handed him a letter of introduction. He explained that he wanted to give money, but clearly, after the accident, he didn't have much left. At least the letter would be useful in the capital if he ran into any trouble. However, he should know that the person named in the letter was quite problematic, so he should only seek them out as a last resort. Our boy accepted Farlian's gratitude, who said that finally he wanted to give his friend a blessing, wishing him a life full of happiness. In the snow, Carmen commented that it had been days since they left Gis, and now they were almost at the city of Keltone. Marnak noticed that the hand didn't like Carmen, but accepted that they traveled together. That's because Carmen had 3.5 fingers, and soon he would have enough power to give Marnak a new ability. However, personally, our boy preferred to keep him alive, since he really liked the boy's cheerful personality. But suddenly, Marnak stopped drawing his sword, leaving Carmen confused. Carmen asked what the problem was, but our boy only said there was blood somewhere nearby, and it was very close. And the worst part was that it was coming toward them. Suddenly, the ground beneath Carmen exploded. A spider jumped from the soil. Man, what a gigantic creature. At first, I thought it was just a big spider, but not one as big as a bunch of trees. Carmen immediately recognized it as a snow spider. It attacked him, and he pulled out his bow. Marnak approached and cut off a few legs. The spider writhed in agony. A piece of it fell to the ground, and Marnak said he was excited to use this blade. The boy got drenched in red blood, slicing it in half and saying he was in the mood to stain all the snow. Meanwhile, someone was welcoming another person to the city of Yisi. Farlian apologized to a girl with blue hair, saying that the place had recently been destroyed. She simply replied that it was fine. Then he asked what brought the blue flame of pilgrimage to that place. She placed a sheet of paper on the table and told him to take a look. He looked down and she asked if he had seen this man. The drawing was terrible, but it was clearly our dear Marnak. Farlian then asked why she was personally looking for this boy. She only responded that it was something personal. Farlian then told her she could leave because unfortunately, no one came to mind, and at the moment, he was too busy to waste time. She simply smiled and said she understood. With that, she left without saying anything. However, the Lord realized she wasn't looking for the boy for a good reason, and he saw no reason to give her any information. Back at the fight, our boy asked Carmen what he was doing, who replied that he was collecting the spider sacks. That's because their venom is a strong anesthetic with many uses. You could sell them or, for example, dip arrow tips in them. Impressed, Marnak asked how he knew all of this. Carmen explained that he had been part of many monster hunts, and there's nothing better for improvement than being part of the fight. Marnak offered to remove the sacks since he was already filthy, but Carmen said they were almost at Keltone, and they could take a bath there. Sometime later, soldiers pointed outside. The two looked like a mess covered in dirt. One of them ran up to the boys and asked how they had gotten there. Marnak replied, obviously by walking, but the guard explained that all the roads to Keltone had been blocked by monsters for 3 days. At that moment, our boy asked for more information. The man said that the city was surrounded by creatures, and every time they went to investigate, they couldn't find anything. All the bodies or items had disappeared. Carmen said that something was strange then. Snow spiders usually drain their victims' fluids and leave the corpse behind. Just then, another man called out to the two and said that Lord Stren wanted to speak with them. With no other option and still filthy, they accepted. The chubby lord smiled, asking if he was Cleric Marnak, the famous demon slayer from the city of Gis. Our boy said he heard they were being surrounded by creatures. Stren confirmed it, saying the two must have noticed that this wasn't the work of simple creatures. He believed it was the result of worship to a dark deity. Marnak asked for more explanation. Stren found it unusual that a single person could restrict an entire city. The Lord explained that the clerics had detected that they were dealing with at least 4 different orders, all working together to keep them trapped. What he didn't understand was why Thorn, since it was a simple place like any other, and he had just become Lord. He cried, saying that if his father were alive, he would know how to handle this. Fortunately, they still had plenty of food stockpiled within the walls, and the soldiers were still motivated, so things hadn't taken a bad turn yet. The problem was that everything happened so suddenly, and no one knew they were completely isolated from the world. That's why he wanted to form a squad to break through the creatures and inform the other cities of their situation. Stren and Marnak fell silent for a few seconds, and our boy said that if that was the case, he would help. Sometime later, the hand was fuming with anger, and our boy asked what was this business of slapping someone and running away. He had even received an item known as the Flux Hunter as payment, something you could only get in the Western dungeons. Who would have thought he'd get one here? Now it would be easy for him to clean his killing blade every time he used it, since the goddess always told him that a blade soaked in blood cuts better than any other. That's why he had no choice but to give his best in this situation. But in reality, he only accepted the mission because he had a feeling it was part of the main quest. Not to mention it was suspicious that 4 orders were working together on this mission. However, in a game like this, a dark deity wasn't anything special, since it's always the other orders pointing fingers, saying who's evil. Of course, it's undeniable that the people in these evil orders are a bit crazy. Unlike the main orders that always work together to take down others, the evil ones walk alone and never cooperate. So why were 4 of them working together to surround this city? Already on his course, Marnak said there was definitely something wrong. They traveled through the snow and Carmen looked back. At that moment, the first spiders began to appear. Marnak smiled, saying they had finally arrived. He turned to Carmen, telling him not to worry because he would distract them. Carmen said that even though Marnak was strong, he couldn't handle all of them on his own. But our boy said they couldn't run since the spiders were constantly getting closer. He then simply said the word reinforcements, jumped off the saddle, and leaped into the fray. Carmen shouted our boy's name, who jumped off, smiling, saying that this was where they would part ways for now. An explosion went off in the snow. Carmen and the others continued forward, looking back. Some molds and spiders began to close in, but a green mist appeared amidst the snow. The goddess, it seemed, had cursed the poor boy, who said her words sometimes hurt. But it was time for him to put on a show. He then raised his blade to the sky, announcing that now he would start searching for this dark deity. A swarm of creatures kept running toward him, but our boy easily cut through them. He gripped the hilt of his sword and kept moving through the horde. The poor creatures could only scream and writhe in agony, while our boy bathed in blood. He stopped and smiled, saying that at this rate, he'd have to start carrying a bathtub with him. He walked toward the creatures and found himself in front of a giant cave, and he asked why, if they know he's coming, no one comes to greet him. He really would have to teach them a lesson on how to treat visitors. Slowly, he walks into the cave. He already notices that the carriages had indeed been emptied by the creatures. Then he sees a hand on the ground and quickly recognizes the body as someone who had fallen victim to a snow spider. Civilized creatures usually clean the table after a meal, but this one was decorating the whole place with its food. He tells the little hand not to worry as he never lets his guard down. But he can't help but be curious about how many humans they've eaten here. There were too many victims for just 3 days of siege, and he wonders if the spider is preparing for a brood. With each step he took, the cave passage grew larger, and he began to feel a strange sensation in his head. Red eyes were watching him, and he told them to show themselves. Man, if all that above him is spiders, I don't know how he's going to get out of there alive. On the ceiling was the massive monster, and several smaller ones began descending. It lunged at our boy, who said he already knew it was there. The queen spider then landed in front of him. Our boy prayed for the goddess to draw the line of decadence. With that, a green flame began to form around him. The spider faced him, and our boy continued his prayer, saying that tonight he would need her power, and in return, he would offer the head of this creature. At that moment, the albino monster struck the queen spider's head with a punch. Marnak activated the Ink of Decadence. Even the albino creature was being pierced by the spider's legs and was easily thrown to the ground. Our boy ran towards the queen, knowing she was at least twice the size of that giant, but even so, he would find a way to deal with it. He began cutting through the smaller spiders and pieces of the queen. He knew she had a lot of accumulated power and didn't want to damage that, but as of all creatures, she must have a weak point. Just then, the spider lunged at him from above. Our boy simply raised his blade and sliced it in half. With that, he channeled all of his sacred energy to his feet and launched himself toward her. At the same time, he ordered the albino to go after her, telling it not to let the spider move. The creature roared, grabbing onto several of her legs, immobilizing her for a few seconds. Our boy knew that no matter how big she was still a spider, and he was going to cut her at the thinnest part of her body. With that, he threw himself forward and landed the first cut. The spider turned to face him, and Marnik kept striking, delivering a series of blows. Sparks began to fly from the creature, while the albino held her down, and our boy continued his barrage of strikes. Finally, the blade went through. With that, the creature of decadence grabbed her by the legs and threw her far away. As usual, Marnik landed gracefully on the ground. The creature came crawling toward him, drooling. Marnik understood immediately and apologized for abandoning it last time. The beast roared into the sky. Just then, someone started cursing at our boy. Looking to the side, he saw a person continuing to hurl insults at him, and crawling out of the spider's mouth, a girl began to emerge. Smiling, Marnik said he knew someone was behind all this. But the Walmart Orochimaru told him to go to hell, and asked why he was interfering with the plans of another worshipper of a dark deity. Marnik ignored everything, and just asked why they were besieging the city of Keltone. Orochimaru was about to answer when he took a bite to the chest. He writhed in pain, cursing our boy again. Marnik asked once more, wanting to know the reason for the siege. The creature didn't want to answer, so our boy kept stabbing, until it started to smile crazily and stood up, saying it would only tell him once it was dead. Marnik said, "Your wish is my command." The creature was startled, and its head hit the ground. With that, he gained another 1,000 points. He sheathed his sword, asking the goddess which of the orders she thought would reveal the truth behind this. She said she thought it would be the third. But standing before the flames, Marnik said he believed only the fourth would reveal everything. However, when he emerged from the cave and returned to the city, he found Keltone in flames. Poor Stren was already dead, and someone said that this little pig was faster than she thought. And worst of all, they had wasted a lot of time because of the brave ones who threw themselves in front. The blonde man asked how the process was going, and the girl replied that he knew it wasn't easy to extract energy from a body. Besides, the most important thing was that they weren't ready because the rats had escaped the city. The girl with black hair was furious, but the other one said that now their success was more uncertain. The curly-haired girl cursed at her, asking if she really thought she hadn't done her best to capture those guys. The problem was that it wasn't easy since a guy from the Order of Illumination and two from the Order of Longevity had appeared. If damn Layla had sent more spiders, at least she would have captured that damn archer and managed to tear him apart limb by limb. The curly-haired girl said that speaking of which, Layla still hadn't arrived. Her friend says that Layla was probably in that filthy nest of hers having fun with her spiders. The blonde man told them to be quiet since fighting among themselves wouldn't get them anywhere. Now that someone had escaped, it was only a matter of time before the fanatics arrived. He asked Farn if she didn't remember how long this plan had taken. She responded that everyone had been planning for more than 3 years, so why was he acting like the leader? And she told them to stop talking as if she wanted those wretches to escape. She then asked the girl with the eye patch if she hadn't given that guy any love last night, since she knew very well what had been going on between them. The girl left saying she was going to check on how things were going. Farna kept cursing until the blonde man told her to be quiet and that they would blame Layla for the escape. The girl smiled, but just as she was about to say something, her head was already flying. Obviously, Marnik had arrived out of nowhere. He extended his assassination blade, and the blonde man only saw it coming. In one swift motion from below, he was cut. Farna was startled, and my friend, our boy, had used so much power that he was already melted. He told the goddess that he had used it unfair to kill without giving the guy time to respond. But these people knew how to use the divine, and it was dangerous for him to face them. Farna, confused, wondered why this madman was talking to himself. That's when Marnik looked at her, and she became even more confused and scared. She then smiled and called out to the worshipper of the dark deity, once again wanting to know why they were besieging the city of Keltone. A little while later, she explained that it was something incredible, and that's why they had been there for 3 years. In front of them was a massive brain, and she said that, in fact, it was supposed to be much bigger. Marnik commented that strangely, the second he asked her, she started explaining everything as if she was eager to talk to someone. The idea was simple. Use the entire city of Keltone as a sacrifice to summon a creature called an incarnate. To achieve this, the 4 of them had been working in the shadows of the city for the past 3 years, and the whole plan would take 5 days. However, because Carmen escaped, they had to speed up the plans, which is why it was done in a hurry. Our boy then activated his blade, and Farna asked what he was doing. He said he was going to kill this creature of flesh and blood made from innocence before it awakened. Farna screamed no, but he had already landed the first strike. He unleashed a flurry of attacks while she screamed, warning that if the creature felt its life was threatened, it would begin to awaken in an unstable state. The monstrous creature started to emerge with a mass of tentacles on the sides. An eye appeared, and another albino monster came forth. The goddess then seemed to inform our boy that there was a sacred relic within the creature's body. He smiled, saying that today was the day to gain a new ability, offering the goddess the sacred points the creature carried. At that moment, Farna started screaming, asking what he was doing. But before she understood, he slashed backward. He simply said that this was the price for the action she had taken. With that, our boy gained another 1,000 points. Now he had 8,592. He absorbed the worshippers and the city's lord. The problem was that he was still a bit short of the 10,000 he needed. He knew that to deal with this creature, he would need a new ability, as the cut he had made was already regenerating. And the more he attacked with sacred energy, the more danger he would be in. The issue was that, unlike the Spider Queen, this creature was just a lump of flesh without a clear weak point. This left him with no choice but to run out of there because he wasn't going to be able to take down this thing. The creature, confused, screamed at our boy, who walked through the city, absorbing as much power as he could. He wasn't that far from the next ability, so perhaps the bodies in the city would be enough. With that, he started running, absorbing everything along the way. However, the creature was obviously chasing him down. Our focus boy saying that victory belongs to the one who gives a like this video that helps Memorial make more juicy content for his viewers, activate the cheeky little bell, and I'm out.
Hey, I'm trying to save some money on my internet bill.
For that purpose, you have to suck my. Are you ready for it?
Hi, this is MC Central, a pay-to-win server that gets kids addicted to gambling. Pretty bad, right? Well, this is Breach Forums, the largest forum on the darknet for selling hacked company databases. Pretty cool, right? Anyways, I asked the owner of Breach Forums, Intel Broker, if he wanted to do MC Central with us because I thought it would be funny, and he said yes. This is by far the craziest collab I've ever done, so I definitely needed some help, which means it's time to send out some invites and see who comes.
Heartbreak already hit me once. They say that it won't happen twice. You struck me down like lightning, lightning. You struck me down like lightning, lightning. My stupid heart gone fighting, fighting. So tell me what you want and I'ma give it to ya. Like lightning, lightning, lightning. You took me down, I don't mind it, mind it. My stupid heart gone fighting, fighting. So tell me what you want and I'ma give it to ya. Like lightning, electrified with love on the mind. So different every touch, every time. Connected by invisible wires, don't you cut me out.
Mr. Intel, would you like to introduce yourself? Fucking guy, bro. Just inhaled a plume of black mold. Fucking dying. Hello. Alright, I am on.
My username.
Fuck, I always have these fucking problems.
Yeah, Intel, you need to lock in.
I'm trying, bro. My VPN keeps getting fucking disconnected.
Are you Goonmax Rizgod, or is that a...
Yeah, how do you know?
It was a lucky guess.
Dude, Intel can't... Me and Intel were gonna do a collab like 2 months ago, and then we got into the call, or not even in the call, we were trying to like get Minecraft running, and he's like, my fucking software, it doesn't run it. And I'm like, what? He's like, I use a programming language that doesn't allow me to fucking run Minecraft or whatever.
Bro, I can't get these
Dude.
fucking errors. What's going on? Fuck, man.
You got it, I believe in you. And I'm also fine waiting, so it's like not a big deal, cause...
Yeah, but you're recording.
Oh yeah, I'm totally gonna put in the video that you don't know how to play Minecraft. Intel Broker can't run the game, and this is obviously a big issue because you can't dupe on a Minecraft server if you can't play Minecraft. The reason Intel Broker can't launch the game is because of the operating system he's using. It's known as Cubes, and for whatever reason it just can't run Minecraft. It's not in its capabilities. So what Intel Broker had to end up doing was set up a virtual machine and then launch Minecraft from that. But we got it all figured out. I'm gonna dig a hole and just sit in it.
Getting angry. I'll do extreme craft then. I'll do extreme craft. Fuck it.
Try.
Oh, now it works.
Oh, it works on
Jeez,
Extremecraft?
I wonder why.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Wait, everybody, let's go to Extremecraft.
Alright.
Intel's on. Yippee! So we didn't ever really figure out why Intel Broker couldn't connect to Minecadia, but he was able to connect to the other servers we were planning on attacking, so it wasn't a big deal at all.
Sorry guys, I'm
No.
a bit of a fucking retard.
Relatable as
need-
fuck.
A man has just awakened the strongest hidden class in history, but is desperately pressing the delete character button, hoping to permanently delete his game character. It turns out this is a revolutionary holographic game where in-game gold can be exchanged for real US dollars, and if one is lucky enough to get a mythic level item, selling it can provide a lifetime of financial security. Even the ore mined in the game can be traded with real gold and silver. Business-savvy players manipulate market prices by analyzing supply and demand relationships to make a profit. Therefore, when the last game capsule in the world arrived, Yoon Jae-young couldn't wait to log in. His character's nickname is still Dex. As the game Arcadia starts, Yoon Jae-young is transported to the beginner's village. The national server has just recently launched, yet the beginner's village is already overcrowded. Here, teams are formed to level up and trade materials and various items. The first quest for newcomers is to defeat a slime. However, precise operations in a virtual reality game are quite challenging, so the game provides 3 basic skills to help newcomers correct their combat techniques. Yet Yoon Jae-young, known as the god of PC games, immediately shows his extraordinary gaming talent. He uses the simplest execution skill, but makes it feel like a swift sword slash. The second beginner quest is to read 100 books in the library. While most players skim through the books to quickly complete the quest, the protagonist spends days carefully reading each book. This is one of the secrets behind his ascent to the top of the server rankings. However, the NPC librarian can't help but laugh, thinking this person is just pretending to be diligent to deceive himself. Today, after reading the 100th book, the protagonist asks the NPC for the second volume. At this moment, it seems like the NPC is invaded by the highest authority intelligence. She subconsciously retrieves the second volume from the warehouse. Why was this second volume stored separately? Yoon Jae-young is puzzled, but the AI-controlled NPC smirks. This is a special book that only appears when actively borrowed. Yoon Jae-young feels a twinge of suspicion. However, the moment his finger touches the book, the scene switches to the holographic game's internal system, where the highest intelligence, Alice, suddenly experiences a multitude of pop-ups. The hidden quest in the beginner's village is now activated, designating this player as the subject for analysis. The first volume, read by Yoon Jae-young, contained the story of the adventurer Ezreal's hidden treasure. The location of the treasure is unknown, but it is certain that this item was the most ancient trace of darkness. The second volume he just borrowed clearly marks the location of Ezreal's treasure, hidden in the depths of a room near the beginner's village. The next second, the protagonist is teleported to the shore of a Rune Lake. After a long observation, he finds no clues. Suddenly, a series of pop-ups flood in front of him. Congratulations, player Dex, for triggering a B+ level quest to find the earliest trace of darkness. According to the document, find and verify the ancient trace of darkness at the bottom of a Rune Lake. Yoon Jae-young thinks to himself that currently the highest difficulty quests in the entire server is only C+. Completing a B+ level hidden quest would make him the top player in the server soon. He leaped towards the lake surface, and after diving 50 meters, he still couldn't see the bottom. The lake wasn't that big. How could it be so deep? His diving skill upgraded to B level. As he dove more frequently, not only did the depth of his dives increase, but his stamina also increased by 1 point. Yet, Yoon Jae-young had dived 200 meters and still hadn't seen a trace of a lake bed. A weary Yoon Jae-young, looking towards the end of the sunset, began to think about giving up. Who would want to waste their time like this? It's the early days of the game's launch, and other players are leveling up by fighting monsters, while I've wasted so much time improving my diving skill. Most importantly, with a monthly mortgage payment of $920,000 for the game capsule, Yoon Jae-young had hoped to pay it off by selling equipment he found in the game, but the hidden quest was designed just for him. Well, I just hope the reward for the hidden quest is substantial enough. After 10 whole days, Yoon Jae-young finally pulled a necklace from the lake bed. Was this the mysterious artifact Ezreal Israel had hidden at the bottom of a ruined lake. At the same time, a pop-up announced that the diving skill had upgraded to a level, stamina increased by 1 point, and water attribute mastery increased by 10 points. Congratulations to the host for completing the hidden quest and receiving the reward, Shadow Necklace. This item contains the unknown ancient trace of darkness, the earliest trace of darkness. Consider carefully before using. Yoon Jae-young chuckled bitterly. The description of this item sounds like a threat. A pop-up asked, "Do you want to use a Shadow Necklace?" Yoon Jae-young decisively clicked confirm. The same pop-up asked again, and Yoon Jae-young clicked confirm a second time. "Are you really sure you want to use it?" Yoon Jae-young's fingers were numb from pressing confirm. Yet, the pop-up kept persuading him not to use it. "I said I'm sure I want to use it. Why are there so many confirmation pop-ups?" His ambiguous words made Yoon Jae-young shudder. Who exactly is talking to me? The next second, a huge pop-up appeared. "Congratulations, you have changed your profession to the hidden class Bard of Anarchy. Your level system has been cleared, and you have gained new attributes. Plausibility. A new quest has been updated." The moment he saw the quest, Yoon Jae-young's heart sank. Other people's beginner quests are to kill 100 slimes, and my beginner quest is to continuously kill newbie players for 7 days? Yoon Jae-young, while cursing, frantically pressed the character delete button. However, a pop-up indicated that the game character was permanently bound to the hidden class, and the deletion failed. Yoon Jae-young's reason for wanting to delete his character was simple. The Bard of Anarchy, his hidden class, not only lacked a leveling system, but also came with such bizarre quests. A leveling system is fundamental to any game. Without it, growth is stunted. Although it doesn't significantly affect combat at the beginning of the server, over time, the gap between him and other players would become insurmountable. He began to regret, "I should have stopped when that lunatic started talking nonsense." Yoon Jae-young lay back, looking up at the simulated sky in the game, lost in thought. Just waiting won't solve anything. After all, it's a hidden class. There must be other uses. Yoon Jae-young searched his status bar for a long time, but found only one difference from others, the addition of a plausibility value. But what exactly is the use of this thing? After reaching a mental breakthrough, a pop-up explained, "Plausibility is a consumable. The more points consumed, the stronger the host's ability to interfere with this world, even to the extent of artificially twisting the world's laws." To initially accumulate plausibility, one must complete the recent class change quest. Thus, killing newbie players will impact the game's operation, naturally accumulating plausibility. Just as the protagonist was about to draw his sword, someone else beat him to it. What a pity. It could have been a one-hit kill. 3 red-named players stepped forward in front of the newbie, smiling but threatening. "Hello, newbies. I am the master of this hunting ground. You are hunting here without permission." After hearing this, Yoon Jae-young was puzzled. The game has just launched, and there are already people monopolizing areas in the beginner's village. The red-named players then threatened, "Judging by your accents, you must be from Seoul. Plus, you were just talking about a mock exam, so you must be students. Just a little search of your usernames, and we could easily find out where you live. So, if you don't want to get killed, roll out from the monster spawn point." The students immediately sought help from the surrounding players, but were met with indifferent stares. One student tried to argue, "It's just a game. Is it necessary to go this far?" The thugs paused for a second, then burst into laughter. "You're right. What a great game, free from any legal constraints. Isn't this world all about the survival of the fittest?" Suddenly, with a thud, the thug's lower leg was severed from his body. It was because Yoon Jae-young had come to his senses. "You might be trash, but I think you're absolutely right." One after another, Yoon Jae-young's execution skills were precisely unleashed. His movements fluid, almost as if man and machine were one. 3 level 12 red-named players were instantly killed and forcibly logged off by the game system. The moment the protagonist's blade was drawn, his ID in the beginner's village was never gone again. A pop-up congratulated him for gaining 3 points of plausibility. Just as Yoon Jae-young had guessed, each had provided 1 point of plausibility. Although he didn't know how to use it, collecting it was not easy. At this moment, the students, as if they had found a savior, said, "Thank you for saving us. We really don't know how to repay you." Yoon Jae-young's expression was calm and detached. "There's nothing to thank me for. After all, I still have to kill you guys. Buddy, don't be too sad. Like you said, it's just a game." The next second, 2 student players were slain by Yoon Jae-young with a single sword strike. Plausibility increased by 2 points. Yoon Jae-young turned and smirked at those behind him. "Good. Now it's your turn." The bystanders. "You shouldn't have any complaints, right?" After a dozen screams, the whole forest fell silent. From that day on, a rumor circulated on Arcadia's official website that a real madman had appeared in the national server's beginner village at night, which was an efficient time for newbies to hunt slimes in the forest. It also became the fastest place.
Yo, thank you, bro. I'm so. All right. Hey.
for Yoon Jae-young to hunt new players. To make the holographic game closer to reality, characters' visibility at night was very limited. Characters could also trip over stones while running, triggering a reduced movement speed status. At this moment, the newbie player was no longer the hunter, but the prey chased by Yoon Jae-young. The danger
Subscribe by YouTube channel, bro.
Everyone come here, everyone come here, everyone come here, everyone come here. I'll drop money, come here. Everyone come here. Everyone come here, everyone come here. My bad, I did not do anything. I did not do anything.
I did a backflip, bro. I did a backflip.
Bro. I did not do anything. No, toma.
Black Bible.
No, You like Gold Eagle? What? You like Gold Eagle? Oh. No. No. You all seem like the gold digger. Gold digger.
Hey, doggos. Let's sing theme. Bro, what's this?
Bro, dildo dog
Theme.
is bullying.
I will kill you.
Fuck you. Fuck you, your mom лежать под гробом. Your mom get down под гробом. Bro, 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 your mom get down под гробом. Ой, bro, your mom get down под гробом. А! Your mom get down под гробом, хуйсос. Your mom get down под гробом. Иди нахуй! Your mom get down под гробом. Блять, как?
Where's the fucking idiot that killed me? Bro, just break into his fucking house. Knock on the fucking...
Yeah.